I tried selling on Amazon and doing print-on-demand dropshipping, and here's the honest results of how it went. It went fucking terribly, and I got into almost $50,000 worth of debt. And while I was working on paying off that debt, I spent 2 years homeless. What's up, guys? This is Braden Sky. This is episode 3 of my entrepreneur journey, going over all the highs and all the lows that I've had in business, with the highs being over $6 million in revenue and the lows being what you're about to see. So the story starts with this book, The 4-Hour Workweek. I originally read it in 2017, and it just completely changed my life and made me realize how I want to live my life, which is I want to escape the 9-to-5. I want to live anywhere as a digital nomad, and I want to join the new rich, which is where you make money online and you have a business where you don't need to be the one that's working on it because you hire people. You know, the book talked about hiring people in India, but it changed, and the place to hire people now is the Philippines. So you hire someone from the Philippines and they do the work for you, which is great, but obviously I needed to have a business model to pursue. So I went on YouTube like most people do, and I looked up how to make money online. And what I found, obviously there's a bunch of people that are trying to teach you how to make money online. The guy that I liked the most was Kevin David. So he taught how to sell on Amazon, and his videos had a lot of clips of him having Lamborghinis and him in a mansion. And I was like, okay, perfect. This is what I want to do. I want to start selling on Amazon, and I want to get rich quick. So basically the model that he was teaching, it was private label. The way that I did it was white labeling, which is where you find a product that already exists from a manufacturer and it already has demand. Then you just put your label on the product, then sell it. And to start the business, I already had $30,000 in debt from the previous business that I started. I made a couple videos about that already, and my car, then a couple other incidences that happened. But I wasn't worried about having $30,000 in debt to start the business because the plan was just to fucking get super rich. So all of the debt, I was just planning to deal with that later. So I went to the credit union, took out a loan for $5,000, and I said, this is what I'm gonna use to start the business. So I bought Kevin David's course for $1,000, and I saved the rest of the money for advertising and for buying inventory. I started taking the course, and I just tried to learn as much about the model as I could. And one of the things that it teaches in the course is to use a program called Jungle Scout, which is how you find the products that you're gonna sell. So it has the opportunity score, which measures demand and competition, and then it rates it on a scale from 1 to 10. And the product that I found had an opportunity score of 8. It's not this one, but it had high demand and low competition, which is what the course taught, is how to find products like that. And I was like, okay, perfect. This is gonna be the product that I'm gonna sell. So the product that I found was a 24 pocket expanding file folder organizer, which was this little thing. I mean, you put your files in it. It's a cheap, shitty plastic piece of junk. There wasn't that many people that were selling it, and the people that were selling it were doing really well. So I wrote right here, product number 00001, because I was planning to become super rich with this business, and I'm gonna need at least 100,000 products I'm gonna launch, so might as well create like a SKU system now. So I did a little test buy of 1 unit. It arrived in my house, and I was like, okay, yeah, the quality is good. Let's do a production run of 500 units. So I did a run with a manufacturer in China. Here's some of the products. And then we shipped it into FBA. The brand that I was doing was called Sky Creations, just because I didn't feel like being original. So I bought 512 units at about $5 per unit, so a little over $2,000 invested. And the plan was to sell them for around $25. So I would buy it for $5, sell it for $25. After paying for the FBA fees and everything like that, I would make a profit of $10 per unit, which is basically you put, $5 in, you get $10 out, and you triple your money every time that you do that. So I was looking at that, and I was like, I know about compound interest, and if you can triple your money every couple of months, it's not gonna take long until you're super rich. So that was the plan. I was gonna live on credit cards while I wait for this new business to start. And I'm just gonna start spending however much money I want to, because obviously, once I can triple my money every couple months, I'm gonna get rich, and then I can just use my newfound wealth to pay off the debt. So I paid like $4,000 to get LASIK. I started traveling and started living, the lifestyle that I wanted to live. I went to the Grand Canyon, I rented an RV, and I went to Yosemite. And in the RV, I was working and getting used to the lifestyle of being able to work from anywhere. And I just had the plan, all of this was obviously expensive, but I'll just pay it off later once I'm rich. And it was a really good plan, with the one thing that I didn't fully think through, which was basic economics. The supply and demand shifted, obviously, because everyone that was looking at Jungle Scout found the product with an opportunity score of 8. So we were all looking at the exact same product, and we all decided to launch the same product at the same time. So once I bought the 500 units, it takes like 2 months to ship it by sea and get it into Amazon's warehouses. So in those 2 months, I just started seeing a bunch of other people selling literally the exact same product from the exact same manufacturer. And I saw a couple different people doing that. And slowly I started seeing the price on Amazon erode. When I bought the product, it was supposed to be selling for like $25. Then I started seeing people selling it for 20, then 15, then 12, then 10. And I think the lowest that I saw, people were selling it for $8.99, which means every unit that you sell, you lose $2 or $3. And this isn't even including prep fees. So when you do a launch on Amazon, you give away a bunch of products for free, and then you have someone review them. And I was looking at, having a $3 loss per unit, and it didn't even make sense to launch it. So I knew before the inventory even got into Amazon's warehouse that my business was dead. All the money that I spent on the course and on the product itself, it was gone. But I didn't lose hope, because there was other people that were happy to teach me how to make money online. And the different method that I found was drop shipping. So with drop shipping, you can sell products that you don't own. So that way I didn't have to take the risk of having the inventory, and I wasn't going to take another, $2,000 loss, because you sell products that you don't actually own. And then when the customer buys it from you, the supplier sends it to the customer, and you don't ever have to touch any of the inventory. And the specific kind of dropshipping that I found was print on demand. So you're basically just selling t-shirts. And seeing that, I was like, okay, this is enough for me to know beyond a reasonable doubt that this is absolutely gonna work. And in a couple months, I'm gonna be fucking loaded. So I continued to live the lifestyle that I wanted to live, which was, working from anywhere and traveling. So I made this video. If you want to watch it, second link in the description. But basically the plan was going to be, I was going to set up a home office in a tent, and I was going to move to Washington State and grow the business while doing camping and while doing skydiving and while living the lifestyle that I wanted to live. So you can actually see, I have this really sick picture where you can see the inside of the tent with the office that I had set up. But there was basically only 3 things you needed to do. You needed to make a design that you would put on a t-shirt, and then you advertise the t-shirt and you make money. And I was so convinced that this is gonna be how I was gonna make my millions and buy a Lamborghini by the end of the year, that my password for everything at the time was Lamborghini 2018. But there was one problem, which is that I didn't know how to do graphics design. So my solution to that problem has honestly been the same solution that I've had to most of my problems in business, which is that I'm just gonna throw a bunch of Filipinos at the problem until the problem is solved. So I found this course on how to hire virtual assistants, and it teaches you how to hire someone in the Philippines on online jobs. And one of the things that taught in the course was when you post a job listing trying to hire a VA, you're gonna get a bunch of people that are applying, and most of them didn't even read the job description. So what it recommends to do is to say in the job description something like, hey, attach a picture of a banana, so that way I know that you read the job description. I didn't want to do a banana, so what I did was, as my instructions to apply, I want you to attach a picture of the car that I'm going to buy by the end of the year, which is a Verdi Mantis Lamborghini Huracan 610-4. And they actually did it, and in hindsight, I think it was a pretty decent filter for candidates, because it's a pretty basic test of attention to detail. Some people attached a green Lamborghini, some people attached a red Lamborghini, and the people that attached a red Lamborghini or a red Ferrari, I knew that they were gonna suck and I didn't wanna deal with them. But after a little bit of interviewing, I found April, who I ended up hiring to do my graphic design and to help me build the website and basically fill in all the gaps of things that I didn't know how to do. And the reason why I liked her is because she had actually made this t-shirt for a previous client that did like $10,000 in revenue. Once you put my meat in your mouth, you're gonna wanna swallow. And this was basically my plan for how I was gonna get rich. But the riches are in the niches, so they say. And I didn't wanna have a generic niche. I wanted to have a niche of something that I was passionate about, which at the time was skydiving. So I created the brand, The Skydive Life, and started making t-shirt designs to sell to skydivers. So I had April do some product research and figure out which slogans would do well on the t-shirts. She came up with these. Some of the funny ones were, if at first you don't succeed, skydiving's not for you. And you don't need a parachute to skydive, you only need a parachute to skydive twice. So she made the logo for the company and she started making these designs. If at first you don't succeed, skydiving's not for you. Skydiving good until the last drop. And I started, I made the Shopify store and I spent a couple weeks getting everything ready to do this big launch. And I decided I was gonna do $300 in advertising into just this one shirt to see if it was gonna work. And I was, 100% convinced that it was gonna work. So to start, I was gonna do a campaign where I did $100 per day in ads. Then from there, I was gonna scale up. So in August, I did the launch and I actually, I started with $100 per day and I said, okay, I'm just gonna wait for all the orders on Shopify to come in. And I did get this one order of one t-shirt for $26, but that was after, about $100 in sales and I was expecting, like 30, 50 orders that day. So in total on a $26.04 sale, I had a gross profit of $15 and I spent in total $140 on ads. So not even including labor costs or the cost of Shopify or anything like that. Just on this one sale, I lost $125. So it took about 2 days for me to kind of realize that this wasn't gonna work as well as I had planned. So after 2 days of running ads for $200 and getting one sale, I realized that it wasn't gonna work and I realized that I was gonna have to pivot and do something else. And this is where, for the first time, I started having some self-doubt creep in, where I was like, oh shit, this isn't going as well as I was thinking it was gonna go. Maybe this isn't gonna work. So I looked at my strategy and I was like, okay, there's, a couple things that I learned from this. One, having a ROAS of 0.17x, meaning 20% of the ad costs that I was spending, I was getting in revenue, not even gross profit, gross revenue. But then more importantly, I started doing some calculations that I probably should have done before the launch. And I realized that there's not a lot of skydivers in the world. It's probably a little bit too niche. And of the people who were interested in skydiving that were a targetable interest on Facebook, there was about 10,000 people. And I realized that even if I sold one t-shirt to every one of them, let's say once a year, which, even that is a pretty big ask, I think my gross profit in total was like $4 per t-shirt. So with the best case scenario, I would only make like $40,000, and that's like a fifth of what I need to get my Lamborghini. So then I pivoted strategies and I was like, okay, I'm gonna start by making a new brand that, the brand itself doesn't matter. And I had probably the ugliest logo of all time. I need this t-shirt. Basically the plan with this was I was going to have a Shopify store where I would just test a bunch of different niches. Then once I find a niche that worked, that's when I would double down and create a brand behind it. And then that brand is gonna be how I'm going to make my millions. So I made t-shirts like this, the best kind of mom raises a veteran. And then I targeted these towards veteran moms. Donald Pump, Make America Strong Again. I targeted this towards Republicans, and anything you can do, I can do better. I targeted that towards people that were interested in like kayaking and, That one doesn't really make sense because they're not the same thing. And I did actually find success with this one, Vegan Bay. I targeted this towards vegan women. But with this one, I had the same problem, which was that, I spent like $200 in ads. Well, I think actually for this one, I went lighter. Maybe I spent $50 in ads, but I still only got one sale. And I was like, okay, like this isn't going to be profitable. And at that point, reality started to kick in a lot more. And the delusions that I was going to get rich quick definitely faded a lot more. And that's when I realized that not only is the business that I just had dead, but also my dreams were dead. And I had a pretty humbling moment where I realized that, I don't have a job. I quit my job to start, pursuing this business. I haven't worked in 4 months. I haven't made any income. And all of the expenses that I had in the last 4 months, which were even elevated because I was thinking that I was going to get rich quick, I just put on credit cards and I said, I'm going to deal with that later when I'm rich. And now I'm looking at the business and this is a lot harder than I was originally expecting it to be. And I looked at my debt and including everything, now I've got $40,000 in debt. I just added an extra $15,000 in the last 4 months. And it was a really big shift where in the span of a month, I went from thinking I'm going to have a Lamborghini to kind of realizing that, I'm not going to have a Lamborghini this year. I'm not going to be a millionaire this year. And that's when I realized that I'm not living in a tent out of something that's going to be a fun way to work and travel the world while I grow my business. I'm living in a tent out of necessity because, now being in Seattle and being an Uber driver for an income, that's not going to be enough to pay my bills as well as, being able to make payments on the debt that I just got. And that's when I realized that I'm homeless. And I ended up staying homeless for about 2 years. And if you want to watch the video about how that was, you can click the link. It'll be the first link in the description. But my name is Braden Sky. Thanks for watching.